Welcome to Aspen Leading Edge. I'm Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law, and today we have the co-founders of Ex Judicata with us. Neil Handwerker, who has decades of experience as a legal recruiter placing partners in law firms, and Kimberly Fine, who is also the Chief Connectivity Officer of Ex Judicata. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Now, Neil and Kim, this is not your first rodeo together, is it? So tell me a little bit about what first brought you together and what prompted you to start something new.
Sure. Well, to go way back, Patty, I've known Kim since she was 23 years old. I hired her for a second job out of college, and back then I wasn't too old either. And through the years, we've been together in different businesses, but it all crystallized in 1995 with our first true startup, which was a business-to-business information firm, conferences, newsletters, directories, books, primarily targeted to the legal marketplace, but we also veered off a little bit to C-level executives. And we had this from 1995 to the year 2000, and we were fortunate enough to sell the company to a public company. And at that point, Kim went in one direction, which he'll tell you about, and I went in another direction, which was legal headhunting, which you had mentioned.
Kim, what direction did you go into at that point?
Absolutely. So I stayed in the executive education space. I worked at American Lawyer for a number of years. Then it was Legal Tech. Now it's Legal Week coming up in March, and did other really interesting projects. So when Neil reached out to me, I was so interested in joining him for Ex Judicata because working with Patrick Krill and a few other leaders in the mental health space in the law firm world, we had done some of the first ever public conferences. So I had been studying that information inside and out, backwards and forwards, and understood that sometimes the greatest thing for your mental health is a path forward. So when Neil brought this idea to me, I was just really excited to dive in and take all these brilliant individuals that might want to do something else and help them find their path forward.
Neil, if you'll tell us, what is Ex Judicata and what's the premise? Why did you all start it?
Well, I started it, or rather, I came to Kim with the idea. It goes way back to when I was an associate in a Wall Street law firm. I left after 3 months, Patty, and I knew that I didn't want to do this for a living. And I went looking for resources, anything. Back then it was the want ads, directories, headhunters, didn't find anything. So fast forward, I was in a variety of businesses, and then, as mentioned, in the legal recruiting space for 15 years, immediately prior to Ex Judicata. But I was kind of getting tired of shuffling the deck, which was basically taking partner from firm ABC to firm XYZ. I wasn't having any impact. There are hundreds of people that do that. Well, maybe not quite hundreds, but a lot. So then I had thought back to my experience as an associate. And after just reading, talking, again, being a headhunter, so many people indicating to me that they wanted to do something other than practicing law. And it just kept coming up. And then that's when I did my research, found that there really wasn't all that much different from when I was an associate way back when. And when I thought I had something, that's when I reached out to Kim in 2022 and asked her if she would join me.
Well, you certainly, I think, have hit the nail on the head with the fact that many lawyers don't want to practice law. Many law students don't think they want to practice law. And I think anecdotally, we always think about the fact that lawyers make good fill in the blanks, right? Entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, whatever it is. So you had this idea, and we have all this anecdotal information, but then how did you build it out, and how does it help those who are looking for talented employees, but also those who are looking for a different path forward from the law?
Absolutely. So how we built it out is like Malcolm Gladwell, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of studying. So we built out the job board with JD adjacent, preferred, and alternative positions. Working with the law schools, and I'll come back to that point in a minute, the law school leaders really educated us on the fact that if a position is a JD, preferred, adjacent, alternative, choose your adjective, it counts for their placement metrics. And that's really important. And also, it's a bit more of a natural pivot if you're looking at something like risk management, investigative services, crisis management. Then what we said is, how do we help a brilliant lawyer at any point in the career that might want to make a pivot understand their probability of success in different careers? So working with a team of PhDs in organizational behavior and analytics, we built out a proprietary career diagnostic match tool. It's on our website. And when someone takes this, it takes just about 20 minutes. The output is 5 business areas with a matching probability of success in those areas. So that's a great place to start, because somebody might have said, wow, didn't really think of investor relations as a career for myself. So then they can go to the job board, they can look for investor relations positions. To further support them, we have a career corner with wonderful coaches that are business people versus, there are many, many wonderful coaches that are lawyers that have pivoted to coaching. One is a former CHRO, one ran operations for JP Morgan, one is a branding expert, one's been in 17 public company boards of directors. So somebody can come in, and each one of these coaches has graciously agreed to give 30 minutes of their time complimentary. And if somebody wants to work with the coach to rebrand their resume, their LinkedIn, or so on, they can do so. Then, in addition to that, to further support them, we have these incredible interviews with lawyers that have pivoted, their story, how their JD helped them. And then we also, a treasure trove is an If I Leave the Law webcast series, totally complimentary. And whether it's crisis management, legal operations, sales, there's a webinar for an area that one might be interested in. They can go ahead and take that and just hear directly from lawyers that have pivoted. So really trying to make as much content-rich, resource-based, information as we can for career transformation.
And what has been the response of the marketplace?
We've been greeted very warmly, and it's interesting, Patty, not just by lawyers and not just by law schools, but also by law firms. That caught me a bit off guard, but it turned out that for many years, or for like forever, they had situations where they knew someone was not going to make it as an associate, or someone who was an associate and said, you know what, this isn't for me, but they had absolutely no idea how to help them. So they've told us this is the first tool we've ever had where we can say to one of our associates, hey, check out Ex Judicata. They can help you if you're interested in moving to a non-legal role. That was just terrific.
That's great. And so do you have a lot of people using the job board and the webinars and the consulting services?
We do on the job board, and I'll let Neil come back to some of the other metrics. On the job board, we have over 500 clients. So it doesn't, we're building, right? Everyone listening needs to remember that we're still a startup, and it's just the two of us working our, what's off. But so on the job board, we do have over 500 clients. We do have over 100 people that have taken the diagnostic. We have over about 1,000 people that have taken any of our webinars. And Neil can share with the very new information about the number of our unique users.
Yeah, that's the 100,000 number, which we're just about to cross, which we're told after 20 months in business is very good. It's really good if you don't have a lot of marketing dollars to put behind it, and you are really just a couple of people. So we're covering a lot of ground, and we see it on LinkedIn also, just the number of comments that we're getting, the number of reposts, the number of followers that we're starting to get. It's all kind of gelling nicely. It's accelerating, which is nice. There's momentum, and we just want to keep this momentum going.
That sounds terrific. Over 500 people using the job, or companies using the job boards, and then 100,000 unique users. Do you have success stories yet? Even just anecdotal. Have people reported back?
Well, actually, we do. Neil, you're welcome to share about the Marsh position if you'd like to.
Oh, all right. This is interesting. This was kind of a search that a company asked us to perform sort of off the job board because they were looking for a more senior person. They didn't think they would find them on a job board, ours or any job board. And it was Marsh McLennan, the insurance brokerage firm, the largest in the world. They had asked us if we could find them a partner in a law firm in New York from an elite firm, if at all possible, that would leave the practice of law to come to Marsh. They were looking specifically for a bankruptcy partner that would come to Marsh to join the global turnarounds group in a non-legal job. We went out looking. Kim found a guy who was at Paul Weiss, about as good as it gets, who was about to retire. And Kim presented him with this, and Alan Kornberg was his name. And he was thrilled that he had a second act. He had no idea what he was going to do. He was not that old. He'd already decided he wanted to retire. No idea what he wanted to do. And then we came to him with this, and that's worked out very well for both him and Marsh.
That's very exciting. And I imagine that will be the first of many such searches that people come to you directly for.
Yes, we're starting to see some others actually.
Now, ex judicata is particularly important at this moment in time when we have a host of recent grads or soon to be grads from law schools who are getting the news that they are not going to have the jobs they were hired for in government agencies. So, how are you responding to those students and soon to be graduates?
Absolutely. We're putting our money where our mouth is. And I am a member of NALP and working with one of the committees there with their blessing. We have reached out through NALP, and we've also reached out through email, and we've also reached out through LinkedIn. And I've also reached out to all of the law schools that we're working with, and even those that aren't yet working with us, to offer full run of the site complimentary for 3Ls that were caught in the crossfire. We already have about 15 utilizing the site. The only caveat is the Career Corner, because they're affiliate partners, but each Career Corner member will give 30 minutes complimentary. But that diagnostic, even our CLE courses, the job board, 100% complimentary. And if somebody is listening and they're interested in that for themselves or one of their students that's in this situation, they can certainly reach out to us on LinkedIn or by email, which is very easy. It's kfine, F-I-N-E, at exjudicata.com. And all we're asking is that the student share with us which agency they were supposed to be employed by, and then we will send them a complimentary code. It's our passion and our purpose, and we're really honored to be able to help.
Well, that's really wonderful because I know those students are just scrambling, as are their career strategy offices. So if you're listening and you work in a career strategy office or at a law school, I hope you will keep this in mind and reach out to kfine at exjudicata.com or Ex Judicata on LinkedIn. Thank you for doing that. As someone at a law school, obviously, it's very important to us to make sure our students are employed. And when they get employed already and then they have the rug pulled out under them, really unfortunate circumstance. Now, what other involvement do you have with law schools? Because I think some people might think ex judicata would be for those lawyers who are now transferring or want to transfer their skills to a non-legal role. But you're actually working with law students and law schools right now, correct?
Yes, that is correct, because it's a nice way for, even if they're, a 2L, let's say, thinking about an alternative career path, whether we don't have very many internships on our job board, right? But at least they can come to the site and they can learn about careers where their JD could be very, very applicable. And so we're helping that way. And what we're doing for the students is the job board is complimentary. And then also for alumni that are 1 to 3 years out. That came directly again from the law school community, because those are the years when they're working really hard to try and repay their loans. We're here to support them. And then it's like a marketing and branding awareness. Hopefully when they're 5 or 6 years out, they'll be like, Ex Judicata helped me. Let me post a job, or let me speak for them, or let me go back to them for my next pivot. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with the law schools and a really tremendous learning experience.
Now, speaking of law schools, do you find that you're serving some legal educators that might want to pivot, or featuring jobs at law schools that lawyers might want to consider?
We certainly have jobs that lawyers who are transitioning might want to consider. I'm trying to think of if we have any active people in legal academia that are looking through ex judicata. I can't really think of anyone. I don't know, Kim, if you come across anyone.
We don't, but let me just take a step back there. When they sign up for the job board, because people may not want their colleagues wherever to know that they're looking, oftentimes they're using a Gmail. So we wouldn't know that it was necessarily somebody coming from a specific law school.
Of course.
Unless we then took their first name and their last name and looked them up on LinkedIn, which we can do, but we purposely aren't requiring too much information, at least for initially for the job board, because it's private. They might just be exploring and they might not want to have us mention it on a podcast. But what I do see from PDC and NELP is I do see a lot of cross between career services in law schools and career services in law firms. I do see a very interesting cross back and forth there. Many of these people do have their JDs. Not all of them, but many of them do. So that's a natural area. And there's many other areas that could work beautifully as well, whether it's, training in the legal tech arena or any kind of a project management or any kind of an HR role. So there is opportunity there, but we're careful to protect their journeys. So some of the information I would love to share, but we don't have it at the fingertips because we're trying to protect the individual.
Of course. And so how about if law schools or employers wanted to post a job? Is that something how would one go about that with Ex Judicata?
We try to make it fairly simple by going on the website, just click on the job board, and it's really just a couple of clicks, kind of walks you through how you would go about placing a job. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
And I understand you also now have a column in Above the Law. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's very exciting just because we kind of read above the law because it's we're reading the largest, I'm told it's the largest source of legal news in America. And they asked us, they had seen what we've been doing in Ex Judicata and asked us if we would be interested in writing, well, actually, I thought it was just like going to be writing one article, but they said, well, actually, no, would you be interested in doing a column? And I said, yes, we would be very interested in doing that. So we had our first column published a couple of weeks ago, actually in January, I'm sorry, and we'll have another one coming out in February. And we're just excited because it's another way of spreading the word of what we're doing indirectly through our participation writing for the publication.
That's terrific. I look forward to seeing the column. And let me ask from two perspectives. I'm going to start with the employer out there who maybe hasn't hired lawyers before and has never been engaged with working with lawyers or with law firms very much. What is your pitch? How do you convince them that hiring lawyers makes sense?
That's a really good question, Patty. That's at the heart of what we're doing. As Kim mentioned, we're trying to go really the closest, the people that will most understand. Those would be CHROs that also are lawyers, of which there are like 80 out of the Fortune 500. They're the people that we believe kind of understand what we're doing and why it makes sense to hire a JD. What we find is that most of the talent executives are familiar with hiring lawyers in really adjacent jobs like compliance. That's one that keeps coming up. But what Kim and I are talking about is going beyond compliance to so many different things. Whatever it may be, investor relations, it may be marketing, maybe sales, really anything that a smart person who has the legal skill set, the JD skill set, can apply. And we're slowly but surely knocking on enough doors, starting to make headways. Kim mentioned the Oracle. And yeah, it's really just keeping at it, I think.
Well, and also what's going to happen, and I'm sure, Dean Roberts, that you and your team are far more expert in this than we are, but we've been monitoring the enrollment cliff. And, as we know, and everyone who's listening probably knows more about it than we do, but basically my understanding is that starting essentially coming into this year, there are going to be 100,000 less college applications, undergraduate. So what's going to happen as you move forward 26 on, you're going to have less college graduates to come into these certain positions, if you will, right? Now, if you don't have a college graduate to fill your position, why wouldn't you want somebody who can read and write and negotiate and issue spot and works hard and is diligent and is, a project manager and, all these incredible skills that a 3L would have, right? So I think there's going to be a really interesting play there to say, if you're looking for a curated source of talent, you're looking for a highly skilled source of talent, but you have less college graduates now to choose from, here's this incredible pool of young people that you can take a look at. So I think that's going to be really interesting as well to watch that play out.
Just to briefly add to that, last week in HR Quarterly, which is the most read publication apparently in the HR world, there was a big article about the title, really, Who Will Do the Work? Because of the enrollment cliff and because of other demographic and labor trends, they are predicting in the next decade that there'll be millions of open jobs without people to fill those jobs. And they've apparently, economists said they've never really seen this before. So that's coming. As Kim said, if people rather can apply their JD skill set and we get the talent community to understand why it makes sense to hire them, that would be great.
That's really interesting. Of course, at law schools, we've been watching this demographic cliff approach, and with some level of nervousness, although increasingly people at non-traditional ages are coming back to law school. But I hadn't thought about how the corporations then must be looking at this. The employers must be looking at this because they are going to potentially run out of candidates. So that is a great space for Ex Judicata to fill. Do you worry at all about AI and what that's going to do to your business, to the market?
Yes.
Yes, don't we all? It's an easy question, right? But how do you worry and what do
Yeah.
you think is going to happen?
Yes. Well, so we've been watching some of the studies and looking at, and I mentioned I had worked at American Lawyer for years and been in and around this space. So I'd always done leadership type events and studied the paradigm of the ratio of partners to associates. So what I've read and, what we think is going to happen, right, is that ratio is going to tighten up. So there'll be less associate positions available unless they, create other and new different responsibilities like higher, highest and best use and thinking of that nature. But how we can help is being able to say, okay, you have this incredible degree, back to the 3 Ls, or somebody that might have a few years of experience within a law firm or even a corporate legal department. Now take that experience and let's pivot you. There's a number of AI governance workshops that we've looked at and even partnered with to share with our audience, because if you're cyber, if you're privacy, if you're data security, if you're information technology that you studied as a practice area, moving into the AI governance, which is going to be a burgeoning opportunity, is a great fit. So we're always trying to uncork these different training opportunities of people that we can partner with and make it available to our audiences so that they can have that leg up in being prepared for change instead of waiting for change to happen to them.
That's terrific. Really exciting to hear that. And what is the range of jobs that you have on your job boards? I mean, is it everything from entry level to, like you mentioned, a partner level kind of a position at Marsh?
It's really from entry level to maybe 10 years out. The situations like Marsh are more for partners in law firms, more for positions that wouldn't necessarily be posted on a job board. But outside of that, it's pretty wide ranging. I mean, we'd like to get a lot more entry level jobs than we currently have. We're working hard to get those.
So if you're listening and you are looking to pivot or you're looking for employment, you can reach out to Ex Judicata. But if you are also trying to find talent, you can reach out to Ex Judicata so that you can post your position on their job board, which I think we might even be doing, because you're always looking for good people, no matter what your business is, including a law school. Getting back to law schools, how many law schools do you have participating currently out of our 200 or so law schools?
So Neil mentioned 68. It's around there. It's probably between, 60 and 68, because what'll happen is we'll give them a code and they'll get in there to test it, which does not yet mean they've actually onboarded us. But I'm going to just stay at it till everyone says, of course, why wouldn't we list Ex Judicata as a resource?
Why wouldn't we? Yes. So here at St. Mary's, we do have it on our alumni app and website so that our alums can get to it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, let me ask, what is the future for Ex Judicata? In the next 5 years, what would success look like to both of you?
I think in my mind, it would be, we have sort of close to 2,000 jobs on the job board. It would be getting to 20,000 jobs on the job board. Lord knows if we hit it right, there certainly are that many opportunities out there that could be posted. Just, I guess, adding on the other side, adding more and more users, getting more and more JDs familiar with what we're doing, what we're about, how we can help. And a lot of it is spreading the word. But as I said earlier, we're really building this nice momentum. But if I had to say one thing that I was absolutely focused on, what we're focused on, it's adding those jobs that will hire the JD skill set in a non-legal role.
So that's why Neil and I are good partners, because for me, it's really person by person. I mean, I've met with people and they've ended the call by saying that I've helped them more in 20 minutes than like X number of therapy sessions. And by the way, I'm not a licensed clinical social worker. Or Neil and I did an in-person career transformation event, which we'd love to take around the country. And at the end of the day, one of the women hugged me and started tearing up, just to have someone understand her and be there to support her and be there to help her. And that's what fills me up. So I think that's part of the reason Neil and I make such a great team, right? Because we kind of have the whole gamut covered.
Well, that's exciting, and I wish you continued success, because if you succeed at Ex Judicata, it helps all of the law graduates from across the country and all of the lawyers. And it adds value to our degree, right? If employers nationally realize what talent there is in those with a Juris Doctor, that's really exciting for everyone. Well, before we conclude, I'm going to ask you the question I ask all my guests, and that is, what are your predictions for the future of legal education in the coming decade?
I think that If what we're doing is resonating with enough people, I can sort of see many more adjunct faculty, many more people taking what they have learned in the practice of law and creating courses, and law schools being amenable, open to them creating those courses. The other side of it, if we hit it right, we could possibly help professors who are interested in doing projects here and there. We mentioned kind of the Marsh situation. Well, it may be that other companies come to us and they're not looking for a full-time hire, but they're looking for somebody that has true legal expertise in a niche area. And I think this is something that we can help with too.
Yeah, and I'd really have to second that. I mean, the whole goal is to let I was going to say the entire world, but we'll start with the United States and move on from there. To know how powerful the JD degree is, and that there's really not a limitation to it. And why wouldn't you go hire from law schools for investment banking and all these other incredible positions where these young, brilliant minds are ready to go? So just really continuing to expand that understanding in the employer community is what I would like to see really evolve.
That's terrific. Well, thank you, Neil Handwerker and Kimberly Fine, co-founders of Ex Judicata, for explaining what Ex Judicata does and how, whether you're looking for work or you're looking for talent, Ex Judicata can be an outstanding place to start and evaluate your options. If you'd like to listen to additional thought leaders in legal education, please listen to other episodes of the Aspen Leading Edge podcast on your favorite podcast channels. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Patty. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.